Are there advantages to being a short-term rental property owner when it comes to minimizing or optimizing your taxes? Today on the Real Life Planning Podcast, I'm talking to Bill Hampton, who's the owner of Hampton Tax and Financial Services. He's a certified financial education instructor and a registered financial consultant. He's been in the financial business for a long time. Bill and I met at a NAPFA conference for fee-only planners not too long ago. And he is somebody who has experience in rental properties himself and working with rental property owners. And today we're going to dig into the short-term rental loophole. Bill, thank you so much for coming on the podcast to talk to us today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity, Cynthia. Glad to be here.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about what's important to know about you.
Okay. Well, you summed it up. I have a diverse background. I previously worked on Wall Street. I was a licensed financial advisor. I started doing taxes about 15 years ago. And I decided to combine my skill sets with tax accounting and with financial planning and bring that to my clients and give them a one-stop shop where they can get help with a number of their financial needs.
So I think it's really interesting that you do this because tax planning is a very important part of the financial planning engagement for real estate investors, and making sure that if you're working with real estate investors, you know what the rules are and how things work, because otherwise there can be some big and expensive mistakes. Tell me a little bit about your own real estate journey.
Sure. So I've been a real estate investor since 2010. I was able to get into the market right after the crash and was able to buy a house that was a foreclosure at a great price. And I've had that property, now for 15 years. Recently added a second property a couple of years ago. And so I have a lot of experience as a long-term rental owner. I've dealt with a lot of the challenges that real estate investors encounter: clogged toilets, the air conditioning going out in the middle of the summer, evicting tenants. So there are a lot of those kind of things that I've encountered. And it's made me more knowledgeable, and I can share that knowledge with my clients.
When we met at the NAFA conference, we talked about some of the things that short-term rental property owners need to know in terms of tax planning and tax optimization. Break that down for us. What do you think are the most important things to know if you are considering investing in a short-term rental?
Sure. So there's a couple of things that you need to know. Now, first of all, the short-term rental loophole is a great opportunity for individuals to save tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it's a unique opportunity. And what I find is that some people are aware of it, some people aren't. And the ones that are aware, they just have a little bit of the bits and pieces and don't really have the whole puzzle. So there are a lot of moving parts. The first thing is that your property has to be a short-term rental. And what does that mean? It means your guest stay has to be 7 days or less, has to average 7 days or less. So if you're a long-term rental holder that does 12-month lease, that it won't qualify for you for the short-term rental loophole. That's one of the most important things. The second thing is that we have to be able to materially participate in managing that property. So what does that mean? It means you can't have a property manager. It means you have to manage it yourself, or if you have a spouse, your spouse has to manage that property. So for a couple, if you have a stay-at-home spouse, they could manage it, and that's great. If you're single, you're going to have to try to manage this around your day job. And material participation, there are basically 7 tests to meet the IRS rules for material participation. And the most common one is you can have 500 hours of working on the property. That's about 10 hours a week, 52 weeks. You take a couple of weeks off for vacation. Or another option is you can do 100 hours managing the property, and that means you spend more time than anyone else on that property.
Including the person that's cleaning it.
Exactly. In that kind of instance, if you have a lot of guests in and out, your cleaner might be putting in a lot of hours. So it might be best to have 2 cleaners. And so that way you're splitting the hours between the 2 of them, and then neither one of them will have more hours than you. So that's an important strategy as well, is to be able to have more hours than anybody else. And that may require having 2 cleaners or 2 teams of cleaners. Next, you want to make sure that, or to get advantage, or take advantage of one of the biggest tax breaks, is to get what's called a cost segregation study done. And there are different firms out there that do cost segregation. My firm offers that service, but there are 2 types of cost segregations. There's one type where you would work with a company that gives you some forms online and you fill it out. And at best, you can. And if you're not very knowledgeable about depreciation, you might not be able to fill it out to the best of your abilities. So another option is to hire a firm that will send someone out and do a site visit and take pictures of the inside and out of your property. And they're able to do that cost segregation based on the photos and the information that they gather. And they're professionals. A lot of these are certified in cost segregation studies. And that's probably going to get you the most bang for your buck. And it's also going to protect you in case of an audit, that you can say, hey, I have a professional company to do this, and these people are qualified, these people are experienced, and I didn't try to do it myself to save $2. So that's the next step, is getting a high quality cost segregation study. And then next step is, after you get that cost segregation study, you have to work with an accountant or a tax professional who understands bonus depreciation. Accountants are like lawyers and doctors. We all have specialties, and some of us specialize in real estate taxation, and some of us don't. And if you go to an accountant who potentially doesn't specialize in real estate taxation, they might not be able to help you with that bonus depreciation. They might do it incorrectly. They might not understand it. So that's an important part also, is after you got the cost segregation, you need to bring in a qualified tax professional to make sure you're able to utilize that to get the maximum deductions that you're entitled to.
So for those people who are considering a short-term rental and maybe they don't know too much about how real estate is taxed in general, I think it's important to say that in general, real estate or rental activities are considered passive income for tax purposes, meaning that a loss in a passive activity cannot offset other kinds of active or ordinary income, like income from your job or income from your business, for example.
That is absolutely correct.
Yeah.
That happens a lot when you have long-term rentals. That's considered passive. And the IRS code allows you to consider a short-term rental non-passive, which means that it can offset your W-2 income if your guest days are 7 days or fewer. If you have let's say what we call a midterm rental, and your guest days are a month, that won't qualify if your average stay is a month at a time, or if your tenants are staying for 12 months. So that is key, is that part of that short-term rental loophole is it has to be a short-term rental. It can't be a long-term rental.
That's right. And the owner has to provide some kind of substantial services. Maybe you're cleaning every day, or you're offering breakfast, or some kind of concierge services that makes it more like a little hotel.
Well, that's not necessary. There are some short-term rental owners that do provide substantial services, but you don't have to do that to qualify for the short-term rental. Obviously, you're going to need to have cleaning done between guests, but no, you don't have to have someone come in and clean every day. No, you don't have to provide meals like a bed and breakfast. No, you don't have to provide like activities. Now, you can do those, but you don't have to qualify for this short-term rental loophole.
Okay. And so why do they call it a loophole?
Well, because the way the IRS code is set up is that normally, again, like I said earlier, rentals are considered, if they're long-term, are they considered passive? So they're what we call, when they're passive, they can't offset your W-2 income. When it's a short-term rental, the IRS considers that a commercial property. And so the depreciation schedule is different. For instance, like for a long-term rental, you depreciate the property over 27 and a half years. For short-term rental, since it's considered a commercial property, it allows you to get the loophole where you can get the non-passive tax deductions, and you can do the bonus depreciation, and you can do other things that you couldn't normally take advantage of with a long-term rental.
Okay, let's dig into bonus depreciation for a second, because, of course, this is in a state of flux as we record this in the summertime of 2025, in the early summer of 2025. The ability to deduct bonus depreciation is at 40%, right? If I correct?
That's correct.
40% of the depreciation is deductible, if I remember correctly.
That's correct. Yeah, so bonus depreciation started at 100% and has gradually declined 20% a year. So it went from 100 down to 80, down to 60 in 2023. And now in 2024, if you're doing 2024 taxes, it's at 40%. So right now, as you mentioned, the big tax bill is being debated in Congress, and they're talking about bringing back bonus depreciation 100%. And if that bill passes, and if that is part of the law, then you'll be able to get bonus depreciation back at 100% for 2025 instead of 40%. So that is potentially a great benefit for real estate investors who did not get to take advantage of the short-term rental loophole previously. And if they bring back the 100% bonus depreciation, that allows you to get much bigger tax deductions. But let me just explain bonus depreciation very briefly. So when you do a cost segregation study, you're breaking down the components in a house. That means you're breaking them down to different parts. So you would have a cost segregation professional come in and take pictures and inside and outside of their house, and they put a value on the components. So they'll say, okay, the heating system is worth $100,000. The plumbing system is worth another $100,000, and another part of the house may be worth $50,000. So what you can do is you can depreciate these items separately. So instead of waiting 39 years to depreciate the whole house, you can break it out and say, we're going to depreciate like the kitchen cabinets for 5 years, or the carpet or the flooring for 5 years. And so you're able to depreciate some of these items faster than by breaking them up versus depreciating the whole building. And that gives you...
So what could be depreciated over 5, 7, 15 years
Exactly.
can be pulled out and depreciated on a faster schedule.
That's correct. Number one, yes, that will give what you call accelerated depreciation. And it will also give you depreciation that you might not get. So what I mean by that is most people don't hold a house for 27 and a half years for a long-term rental, and definitely not holding a house for 39 years for a short-term rental. Most owners hold a house maybe 10 years or less. So this allows you to get depreciation that you would not get for those other 29 years also in those 5, 7, and 15 years. So that's another great advantage, is that not only does it accelerate your depreciation, but it gets you depreciation that you would not get if you didn't hold the property for the full 39 years.
So when we see clients do this, or we read about it in real estate forums, for example, typically we have a situation where one spouse has a high income, either through W-2 income or business income. In some cases, might even have like stock option income for stock option exercises, something like that.
So
And then the other spouse works managing the short-term rental without a property manager and is contemporaneously tracking their time. If they were audited, they can prove their activities, for example. Have you seen any other situations where somebody might take advantage of this kind of accelerated depreciation strategy with a cost segregation study and then trying to take advantage of that to offset ordinary income?
yes. Yeah. So it's most common when you see couples, when you have a stay-at-home spouse that can manage the property. But I have seen individuals that are single that work in, I have clients in the tech industry that are high earners, and they utilize this also, and they're able to manage the property using technology. You have smart locks right now. You have the platforms like Airbnb, VRBO. So you can really manage this property remotely by using technology and still be a single person, and then use that to, like you said, minimize tax on a high income earner that's getting high salaries or high stock options. So yes, it's one of the favorites, and it's definitely something I recommend. And I work with a lot of clients who are in that situation.
So somebody can meet that material participation test by meeting the 100 hours
Absolutely.
test.
Absolutely. It's easy to do 100 hours. That's 2 hours a week. So that's not hard to meet at all. And you don't physically have to be there. If you have cleaners that, can access the property, you don't physically have to do this. And like I said, a lot of it can be done remotely, and it can be done by a single person. Or like you said, by a couple with a spouse that has the time to manage a property.
Now, of course, this is tax education and not tax advice. Everybody's situation is a little bit different. And of course, if you're thinking about implementing one of these tax strategies, you should, of course, talk to your financial planner and your professional tax advisor. Everybody's situation is different. So let's just talk about this as from an educational point of view. Where have you seen folks go wrong with this?
Okay. A lot of times I've seen folks go wrong because they misunderstand the rule. So they think they can do this with a long-term rental. They're like, oh, I got a long-term rental. I want to do a cost segregation study. And you have to explain sometimes that you're not going to get the same benefit that because it's not, short-term rental. So that's the first thing I see wrong. A lot of people think that it can be done for any type of rental. And so
that's right. And they misunderstand the rules for real estate professional assessment, which is much, much higher hurdle. And you have to be working professionally in real estate this is your full-time gig. You can't have another full-time job and qualify for real estate professional.
You can in very limited circumstances, like
unless it's in real estate.
No, yes, if you have a full-time job in real estate, like you're a real estate agent.
Yeah. So folks think, oh, I have this long-term rental. I've been reading some blog posts about cost segregation studies. I'm going to go do one and try and claim it using the short-term rental material participations test, which doesn't work, basically. Are there any other situations where you've seen people make mistakes with the short-term rental
Yes.
tax strategies?
Yes. So with a short-term rental, they think that they can do it by having a property manager manage the property. And again,
Yeah.
with the material participation, you have to manage the property. So that means you or your spouse. So you can't have a property manager. A lot of people just think, oh, I'm going to get the property manager to do it and I'll qualify. So that would not allow you to do it if you have a property manager. That's something common misunderstanding.
And now here we're both business owners and rental property business owners. With long-term rentals, which it's not really that it might be passive income on your tax return, but it's not really that passive, right?
No.
Somebody's doing the tenants' toilets and trash.
Yep.
And my kids have a property manager, but it is work, right? Now, a
Absolutely.
short-term rental is a job. It is a lot more work than, especially if you're turning guests over every couple of days. And so it's certainly something to think about before you go and don't just implement the strategy for tax purposes. Like you got to want to do the work.
Absolutely. You're not, you're in what you call a host business. You're in a hospitality business. You have to make that client happy. If you don't make that client happy, they write bad reviews, and that is going to hurt you when you try to get future guests. Being in a hospitality business means you have to be available almost 24/7. That tenant sends you a text message in the middle of the night, the toilet's clogged. You either got to go out there and you got to figure it out, or you got to call a plumber and go out there and figure that out. Or you have to take, carry your tenant while they're there. Or if, something's not working. And I actually stayed at Airbnb and I had that situation where the toilet was malfunctioning. So yes, that is something that you have to think about. You have a full-time job, you're in the hospitality business, and it's important that you keep your clients happy because otherwise they'll write bad reviews and that's going to hurt your earnings.
Yeah. Yeah. And is there anything else you've seen where people make mistakes with this?
Sure. A lot of people were renting Airbnbs to do parties. Now, Airbnb has changed the rules now where they don't allow parties, but you would see a lot of people that have large houses would throw parties. And then that would lead to damage to the property. That would lead to some people getting hurt, people getting shot at parties. You could potentially have the police coming there and making your house what we call a nuisance house, and then therefore you would not be allowed to rent it out. So you could have a lot of bad outcomes. Now, again, the party rules has been put in place by Airbnbs and not allowed, but I've seen that happen in the past to short-term rental owners before the rule was changed. So you have to have a good insurance. You have to screen your guests very well. Like I know in some platforms or some rentals, you can't be under 35, you can't be under 30 to rent a property because the owner might feel like if you're in your 20s, you're not responsible and you could potentially damage the property. So that's something that you have to think about is property damage. Also theft. Sometimes tenants will steal things. So you have to make sure you or your cleaners check to make sure that somebody didn't take the coffee maker or the toaster or whatever. So those are some things that, you have to think about because people will unfortunately take some of your items. So you have to try to manage that. Some rental owners have put cameras outside the house. Airbnb doesn't let you put cameras inside, but you can always put cameras outside to see how many people are going in and out.
Like a Ring doorbell or something.
Exactly. Or just cameras just pointed at the driveway or pointed at the front door. You can always put sound detection inside the house. You can't, have cameras, but you can have sound detection. Sound detection will tell you if there's a lot of music going on, if a lot of people there, and clue you into a potential party situation. So that's something as well. So there's a couple of things that you can do to protect yourself as a short-term rental host.
So, let's talk a little bit about what happens when the property investor in a short-term rental has conducted a cost segregation study, taken accelerated depreciation on the tax return, and now let's say it's 5 or 6 years later and they want to sell the property. What's most important for them to know?
There's a couple of things that they have to know. So first is that you're going to probably have to pay some capital gains tax if the property has appreciated in value. Hopefully it has. And you will also be subject to what's called depreciation recapture. So the IRS basically allows you to take the bonus of depreciation. And it's like a loan. I tell my clients it's like a loan. They're like, hey, yeah, you can depreciate the property and take the accelerated depreciation and do your cost segregation study, but you're going to have to pay some of that back.
When you think of your own real estate goals, what's next for you in your real estate business?
I would like to get additional properties. It's a little tough right now in the market. We have high interest rates. We
Hmm.
have a lot of people that are looking to buy real estate here in the Atlanta area from out of state.
Hmm.
We have your California investors who see the prices here as cheap compared to California. We have your New York investors on the other coast that are also looking to buy here. And then you also have the hedge funds always buying up properties. So it's a lot of
Hmm.
competition now. And so the deals are a little bit harder to find, but they're still out there.
Sure. And rates are higher. If it were easy, this is the time when you can really prove your mettle as a real estate investor. I see cash flowing deals every day in
Mhm.
different parts of the country when clients bring them to discuss. But it's certainly a little bit harder to find than when both you and I got started, which was during the Great Recession.
Absolutely. It definitely is
Mhm.
harder to find. You have to be able to pivot as a real estate investor. And like you said, look at other parts of the country. One of my investments is in Delaware. I decided to go out of state and get a property there when the values I think were better and it was a good deal. It was new construction.
Mhm.
And you're right, there are deals out there. You just have to be willing to look around for them and be persistent.
So, what would you say the best piece of advice you have ever received as a real estate investor?
As a real estate investor, I would say the best piece of advice is find a mentor. Find somebody who knows more than you do, especially if you're a new investor. And there are mentors out there. I don't recommend that you go to some guru that's going to charge you $10,000. I would say the best place to find a mentor is join a local real estate investors association.
Oh, I so agree with that.
Well, there are
Yeah.
so many experienced investors out there
Mhm.
in the real estate community, and a lot of them are willing to help you and give back because somebody helped them when they first got started. Real estate investors are usually very generous if you find a good mentor and you're serious and, you just say, hey, I just want to spend a week just following you or
Mhm.
shadowing you. Or, and you really can't learn a lot by taking somebody to dinner or lunch. An hour or two is not going to be enough. You have to be willing to say, I'm going to follow you for a week or follow you for a week or two and just see what they do and see how they do it. And that's where you can learn, I believe, more. And that's going to probably be the best advice I think that I can give to a new investor or an investor that wants to up
Uh,
their game.
Yeah, so good. So good. And are you curious? What are you curious about right now?
What am I curious about right now? There's a lot of things going on. So I'm curious about what's going to happen with the market. I mean, we got so much turmoil going on with tariffs, potentially war.
Mm.
We got protests. How is the market going to digest that? What is the Fed going to do? Are they going to lower interest rates or not? So there's just so much in flux right now. So as an investor, whether you're in the market, whether you're in real estate, there are so many things that, are affecting your investment opportunities with high interest rates and the Fed going to lower interest rates.
Mhm.
So many other things out there. So that's what interests me is what's going to happen? What does our future look like in the markets as a real estate investor and how I can pivot or how I can stay ahead of the curve to help myself and help my clients.
So, Bill, before we finish up, where can we find you online?
Okay. You can find me on my website at www.hamptonfinancialllc.com. That's HAMPTON financial, FINANCIAL LLC.com. I have a weekly newsletter that you can find on there. You can get information from that. You can get information about my services. And that's the best place to find me.
Bill, thank you so much for chatting with me today about the short term rental tax optimization and the short term rental loophole. And I look forward to seeing you at the next conference.
Absolutely. It was great. Thank you for the opportunity and look forward
Thanks.
to seeing you as well.